there's no easy answers for this, and these types of answers I feel are best delivered in person. And the bottom line is, and then I'll get to my suggestions in a second. The bottom line is this particular charter amendment is contrary to law. This charter amendment has been found by the Supreme Court of New Mexico as contrary to law. As a matter of fact, this exact issue was raised in another community who was a home rule community, just like you are, back in 1987. Directly the same issue. The city of Gallup wanted to make its council elected at large rather than from districts. They had a population exceeding 10,000. They passed that charter amendment. It was challenged, and the state Supreme Court struck that down. So it's, it couldn't be a more perfect match to what we have here. So unfortunately, I think the status of the law since 1987 is that this type of an amendment, this type of a formation of your government is not permitted, not recognized. The question is, what do we do about it? I mean, we have a few options, and none of them are optimal. But let me outline them for you, and then I'll give you my recommendation. The first is that we can take this back to the voters. We can take this back to the voters within a charter amendment to repeal the 2022 charter amendment. And we can put out public service announcements and hope and pray that the voters follow our advice and repeal the charter amendment. But there's a chance that they won't. And so we could run the risk of investing $20,000, $30,000, whatever it takes to, cost to run an election in the city, and be right back here in a year. So that's one option, in my mind, not a real good one. The second option is we can bring a lawsuit. We can bring a declaratory judgment action, which is a lawsuit that we bring before the district court, essentially on stipulated facts, on agreed facts, and we ask the district judge to decide whether or not our charter amendment is valid. The risk we run there is that the district judge is bound by Supreme Court precedent. So it's likely that this district judge is going to uphold what the Supreme Court said in 1987, and we would have nothing, no further activity the only way we could change that would be to appeal that all the way up to the Supreme Court. So then we would have 2, maybe 3 pieces of litigation to get it back to the Supreme Court to hope that the Supreme Court changes its mind. They may not. Significant time has elapsed. The third option is to do nothing. If we do nothing, if we keep the council the way it is, if we don't act on the charter amendment, we, of course, your citizens are going to question why you did that, and I think this is what we'll have to explain to them, is why we decided to do that. That the course of action would be to not do anything, because to do something would be, essentially contrary to law. That's my recommendation, frankly, is to do nothing. And here's my reasoning behind it. I have litigated home rule cases in the past on several occasions. And every time, and maybe this is a reflection on my litigation skills, I don't know, but I've lost every one. Now, I would rather think, and I think some of the cases that I've litigated, and I think this particular case in mind, are examples, with all due respect to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court either doesn't understand, doesn't appreciate, or doesn't like home rule. Because there's contradictory language in what you're allowed to do under the home rule, under the constitutional provisions, but when it comes to implications and when it comes to implementing it, the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals have handcuffed municipalities. And so I just don't think that either submitting it back to the voters or litigating this issue is going to be in your best interest. And so I wanted you all to hear that all at the same time from me, so that you understand at least my rationale and my thinking in giving you the suggestion that you simply do nothing. And then if you do get sued, let's take that step. You do get sued, and some citizens group sues you to say you didn't follow the charter, you didn't follow the wishes of, the citizens. At least you would have this 1987 Supreme Court decision to back up your decision to do nothing. So anyway, that's in a nutshell. I didn't want to take up a whole lot of your time, but I felt this was an important enough issue that I would like you all to hear the same thing from the same person at the same time.
Thank you, Mr. Van Vleck. Appreciate you being here and appreciate all the work you do for us.
You're welcome. And I'll certainly answer any questions if you do have. And no, it's not up, I don't know if it's up, I don't think it's up for any kind of a vote, but
Just discussion.
I'll leave that to you, how you schedule that and how you decide to deal with it.
So Randy, based off of everything you just said right now, just kind of to give you where we're at, we opted into the November elections.
Yes.
So it's not gonna cost us anything to actually put this on there.
Well, I don't know what it costs. I mean, the way I understand the way it costs, it may not cost you anything unless there's an exceeding long ballot. And then if there's a long ballot, then the cost of printing additional ballots or adding that additional page, if it comes to that, because this would be a ballot measure, would come back to the city. So I don't know.
So kind of the reason, Ms. Cassandra probably reached out to you is, we do have an election coming up in November. None of us, because we opted in, are gonna be on the ballot because of the, extending the term. So this, one of the things that we did, because the last charter that we did have, and I could have, or maybe I'm wrong, but it wasn't you that reviewed our last charter? Because I know Scott wasn't involved in it because there was a conflict, so they failed. They brought in somebody from Municipal League. It wasn't
Did
you.
your first charter?
Okay, so it was somebody else?
Somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know who was involved in in this recent amendment. I don't think Scott was, and I know I wasn't.
Yeah, I know that the Charter Commission kind of had some concerns. There was
Yeah.
a couple of members that thought that, him sitting on the city and kind of being the one putting together, there was kind of a conflict. So, we did bring somebody in to kind of review that and, it got through, that it was okay, and that's how it went to the voters, and the voters approved it. So that's where we're at today. So you're saying just probably leave it alone? I mean,
That's what I would do. I mean, this has happened to me in the past, and, where we had, and I'll give you the example I had. We had, in your charter, you have initiative, where if you have enough signatures on a petition, it can force the city council to adopt or vote on an ordinance. Well, in one of my previous lives, I represented a community. They had an initiative. They got enough signatures on a petition to approve a facially unconstitutional measure. And so, they were faced with, well, what are we gonna do? Do we put that on the ballot or what? And my recommendation to them was to not do anything, the same kind of situation we have here. So,
and I don't know if I could ask this question.
it's not
but
ideal, but it's,
This is charter related, and, this is probably one of the questions that I want to put on the ballot. What happens in the past is that, there's the three forms of municipal government. You have your commission style, your mayor, where your mayor is basically the CEO, and then you have your mayor with city manager. And the form, and to what I read, and I don't know, some individuals probably see it a little differently, but we have the mayor with the city manager, and the city manager is basically the CEO, right? So no individual city councilman or the mayor can pretty much tell, the city manager works for the whole governing body, based off of our charter.
works
am I
for all
correct?
of you, that's correct.
Okay. And I just want to, we make that very clear because, we have committees making recommendations and different things that, I think we need to be a little more clear within our charter that, the city manager works for the entire governing body and not just take directives from one individual. And that's one thing that I want to make sure, even though it reads it there, but I just wanted to see, make sure that what I read is kind of what, you have the experience and you've done all this, so that's correct, right?
I mean, I haven't looked at that portion of your charter, but, that's pretty standard language that.
Yeah,
when you
because
have
if
a
we do, I
commission
mean,
manager-
if we did want to give, let's say, the mayor or an individual, then we put it through ordinance and we pass all that and, give them that direction as a governing body to give that individual that authority. So I just wanted to, get your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Vleck. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for coming to our city.
Nice seeing you again.
Nice seeing you again.
Mr. Matar?
Mayor. Oh,
Just start talking now.
Okay, beat it up. Hey, I guess, this was only for discussion purposes only, but, would want to see if, Madam Clerk, would be able to put it on an item for, action.
certainly, if that's the wish
Put
of the
it-
governing
and
body.
Put, both, all three items for action, and let's see what we do with it, and go from there.
The three options.
Yeah, put all three options and we'll vote on it and move forward on this item that way.
I'm just in favor of accepting legal advice.
Yeah, I am too.
But I think there are also some things that we need to, put in there that, need some clarification. I know, we've had some issues, pertaining to the city manager and things like that, that maybe we want to look into, do we need it on there or do we not need it on there? And put it up to the voters and see what they decide.
I don't agree with that. I mean,
That's what I'm saying, put it on the agenda so we can vote on which way we're gonna go.
but you're talking about adding language to the charter regarding how the city manager works within the city administration.
No, it's there, no, but one of the ones I'm talking about is the specific certifications and things like that, that I think probably offers up some discussion at least, because I think every city manager we've had hasn't had that, so I don't know. So for discussion, I mean, we could discuss that or debate that later on.
I think what Counselor's stating is other items that you may
Yes.
want to be placed as a question on the ballot for the upcoming election that we talked about the last
Yes.
time.
I'm in favor of entertaining that. As far as this one goes, as far as the advice Mr. Van Vleck gave us regarding our legal options, I'd rather just take legal advice. But if you want to put it on the agenda and go through the whole rigmarole of whether we choose one, appeal to the charter adjustment, or declaration of judgment, or declaratory, or do nothing, I would much rather feel comfortable taking legal advice from, that the gentleman provided for us. But that's up to you.
That was the legal advice, that we have three choices.
Yeah, but his advice was the last one.
His recommendation was the
recommendation.
last one. Yeah.
Oh,
Basically to do nothing, sir.
yeah. Well, in order for us to come to that conclusion, we have to put it on the agenda and vote on it, no?
No,
Because on this here, it just says discussion. It doesn't give direction on this agenda item.
I mean, Mr. Mayor,
We've been advised.
Counselor, I don't think any action is necessary. I mean, you have this, you have a charter provision that you've adopted, that I think you've adopted, that's contrary to law. And I just don't think you don't need, unless you want to do something affirmative, you don't really need to do something at all. I mean, if you want to vote on doing nothing, I mean, you're free to do so.
So I guess this is where we're kind of, who's going to make that decision if not the governing body, I guess.
It seems like we're not in agreement with your recommendation.
I am.
Well,
I am too.
that's.
So you could put it on the
And I
agenda,
can
you could put
bring
it
it
on the
for-
agenda for the next meeting. And the agenda will be these three choices.
Recommendation on your agenda
Yeah.
for approval.
Thank you,
That's better.
thank you.
Vote that up or down.
Thank you, Mr. Van Vleck. Thank you. Moving on, please.
Moving on to item number 2, request approval of Resolution 2315 to apply for and accept a grant offer administered by Federal Aviation Administration and the New Mexico Department of Transportation Aviation Division in the amount of $100,724.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve Resolution 23-15.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. I'll take a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Casey. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Casey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Mayor and council, if I may, I just want to read something for the record.
Is it
So-
pertaining to this agenda item?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So previously and historically, FAA share has been 90%. NMDOT would share 5%, and the city would have shared 5%. So this year, they felt generous. It's good in our favor. So NMDOT is sharing of 9%, and the city is just 1%. So there's a change that reflects on the resolution.
Very well.
Just that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for letting us know.
Moving on to item number 3, request approval for paving of the northbound lane of Hot Springs from Bernalillo Street to Mora Street. We have our Public Works Director, Arnold Lopez.
Mayor and council, so this request, so we have a portion of this that was, area that was disturbed, by the contractor, of course, to accomplish the utility work in that area. So, the area that was, basically excavated, needs repair, obviously, and some additional that they damaged during that process. Well, we're coming to you today for approval to pave to half of the street. And the street it's a wide street, so it's a lot of extra material. And the reason why we're wanting to do this is, of course, to provide better value to the street and at least pave half of that street at this time. So.
Is there another project to pave Hot Springs? And
Well-
this is not included in that?
Not in this area. So we do have a project, which is the CDBG project.
Right.
Which will start from Mills Avenue, basically, New Mexico Avenue, and go south.
So it won't
So
cover,
it
that
won't get
project
to
will
that
not
portion.
cover this?
It'll get a portion of it, but not entirely.
Okay.
So that allows us in the future, when we can acquire additional funding, and if that's gonna be our next CDBG project as well, to continue that towards the plaza, we will only have to address half of that street. So that's in the intent for these additional monies requested.
So one side will be nice and paved and the other one will be bumpy?
Well, so there will be areas that they did go across with the utility services that will get repaired, and then we'll go in and do a good pothole repair on it and patch it and stuff like that, and get it to, reasonable condition.
Well, just the fact that I travel that road every day and it's disgusting as it is. A patch like this is probably worth a lot to the traveling public. I mean, not, that road is used so much. And so, what's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya?
So, Mr. Lopez, so how did we drop the ball on this one? We didn't have we only had funding for the utilities and not the pavement of it, or we didn't expect to tear all of it up, or what?
And Maria could probably add to this, but the project that was
Called for within that area was, of course, to, install a new utility in there. And then there was enough monies to patch it back up to kind of the original condition per se. But it is a road that is deteriorated and is in dire need really of complete reconstruction, in my opinion. But is there funding for it at this time? No. This is, again, to at least repair half of the street, and then until we can acquire additional funding for the rest.
Mr. Maestas, is there anywhere else that we can get this funding to do a complete project?
Mayor and council, I'd like to kind of go back along with what Mr. Lopez has mentioned, that the original excavated or disrupted area was included in the original project for the sewer line that was replaced. We went ahead and tried to find additional funds with what remaining budget we had before this next fiscal year kicked in to repair what we could. All we had enough was to repair one lane of road. We're also between a rock and a hard spot because the contractor would like to close up his project and move on and close it out because he's already completed the sewer line repair. But we've tried to improve the finished product by at least paving one lane of road. If we had more time, we could probably budget for that in the next coming year, which is in a month from now or so, to possibly do both lanes from start to finish of the project. But we didn't have the budget to do that currently in this fiscal year.
And is it out of the question to go to the New Mexico Finance Authority and ask for a $100,000 loan?
Well, Counselor, at this point in the procurement process and when accounts are trying to be closed, it's difficult to ask anybody for any kind of money because our finance department has strict regulations as far as when we can submit requisitions and POs can be processed. We could potentially option it, but again, we're holding up the closure of the project. The longer it stays like that, we're having to hold the contractor accountable to go after each storm, to fill in every pothole, and they want to get their project completed as well, so.
I'd say wait till July 1st and get that other funding and do it all. I mean, we don't want to be doing half projects or half lanes. I mean, it don't make no sense to me. I mean, they're already gonna do half of it new, might as well do the other half and just get the money July 1st.
Mayor and council, if I may, to do the other half lane would cost in the excess of probably 400,000 to do the other half lane, to reconstruct it properly, to stabilize it and to reconstruct it. And at the same token, you want to repair some of the curb that's bad within that area, and possibly sidewalks, ADA ramps and stuff like that as well. But, because keep in mind, this portion that we're asking for, the $78,000, is not for the whole half a lane. It's like for maybe a quarter of that lane,
Got you.
Yeah, and my recommendation and thought was gonna be on our next round, which will be coming up, for the MAP and co-op, is maybe use that street, as our project, our selected project for additional funding.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Olivari?
Anyway, I don't know, I had a lot of complaints on that road, but, we do need to do something with that road because otherwise, we're still getting complaints about it. The roads are really bad, and if we do half lane, that's fine. We can get some more funding on a year from here, and I think we can finish the whole project. But, we need to take care of it because, we got your city employees going out there fixing potholes or putting gravel on them because, it's just a waste of time, a waste of the city money, It's a good idea. We need to take care of it if it's a half lane.
Yes, sir, and it's a good opportunity to at least, accomplish half of it with utilizing what the contractor is responsible for, right? Because if we just allow them to correct their area, we're gonna have a strip there from center lane, which that's where your crown starts, no? There's gonna be a small portion there that's gonna be very difficult later on to tie it in there. A center line tie-in is aesthetically a lot more pleasing. Basically, I think it's just a good opportunity to get us at that point.
It's a pleasure to the council. Mr. Romero?
So Arnold, you kind of rose some red flags here. I guess Leo took off, but, so you said that the part that we're gonna be replacing was from previous utility cuts. So at what point, there has to be a point to where, it has to be a certain spec. And if, they damage the sidewalks and things like that, then why are we covering that instead of?
No, so if I may, Mayor and Council, so the portion that the contractor is responsible for is everything that they damaged during their construction, plus everything that was additionally damaged during that phase. So they actually saw cut it, which you would think that would be like their boundary, basically, right? but they broke it and further damaged more asphalt. So we're holding them accountable for that as well. So I specifically went completely through it as well as Maria's team, and we had dual verification as to what actually was damaged by the contractor and making them totally accountable for that, including the crossover services as well. Okay, so we're very confident, and I think Maria could attest to this, that we're holding the contractor totally accountable for what they were required to repatch and pave due to the project, plus additional asphalt that was damaged during their construction.
So this would be bid out, or how was that, CES?
Yes,
So-
I
So more
believe,
than, more than likely, the person that damaged it will be the person to pave it. Is that
correct,
where
and
we're
the
at?
reason why that we recommend that, what happens, you get into like a warranty dispute, basically. So let's just say that we had somebody else, the contractor's gonna pave to their portion. To pave this additional area, to get a contractor to come in to pave maybe 4 feet or 3 feet, whatever it is, and it kind of varies in areas, no, would be extremely difficult even because, so this first contractor is not gonna prepare the surface, no, finish grade and stuff like that, ready for pavement. They're gonna patch like their area. And then if you're gonna have another contractor come in and do a little portion, and then you're gonna get into a dispute of, okay, this contractor, utilities failed this asphalt, no? And they're gonna be pointing fingers at each other. This way, you hold the contractor totally responsible for that half lane,
So I guess
or
the-
not half lane, but half road area.
So the question, I guess, kind of, red flag that raises there for me is, you're gonna go with this individual automatically, so we might be paying, without getting quotes or whatever, and I mean, that's up to you guys. But we might be paying for some of the part that they're supposed to be warranting is kind of what might.
So in a project, you have a pay item. So the asphalt price has already been determined through your contract, no? So you use the same price basically based on the pay item amount for that item of asphalt, say, So it's not like you're allowing them to charge just whatever they want, no? And actually, we're getting a better price, right, Maria, than what was in the contract?
Correct. The contractor agreed to lower the unit price if they were responsible for a larger area.
I can assure you, Mayor and Council, that it's not up to the contractor just to dictate and throw whatever price he wants out there, no. It is actually in a contract.
We've had
price.
issues where on A Street, the same thing, some work was done, we had to go a couple times and have them redo it, so I don't know, it comes to that point to, again, holding contractors accountable, but maybe one day we'll get to that point. Thank you.
Mayor and council, if I may, so a lot of this discussion came up because of that project on 8th Street, and that was in a different capacity at the time. That project was kind of put together, and then it failed, it sunk in, and it was paved over again. And so now, instead of us always just trying to fill the void of where it was excavated, if we have the money to pave the whole road, in some cases, like we did on North Gonzalez, we did that. In this case, we didn't have that funding, so we're trying to do the next best thing is to do one lane of traveling traveling road, so that way, the next project, we can do the next lane if we have the funding. The other portion of that project, we thought that maybe we'll stop the contractor at this point. We'll get bids to do the whole project. Another contractor is not gonna wanna warranty their work over an excavated area from another contractor, because if there's failure or sinking in the excavated area, the other contractor's not gonna warranty it. So that's why we use CES in this capacity for this project.
I think I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up, but this sounds like it's our fault. This sounds like a bad project management issue. This sounds like the contractor, from the utility standpoint, didn't communicate with the amount of damage that was gonna be done to the road so that we could afford to fix this road after this happened. And it sounded like, am I wrong?
No, yes, sir. Everything that was excavated or disrupted by the contractor is being covered by their original contract. This is the other portion of the lane that we would like to complete. The contractor's doing everything that they need to be accountable for the 4 feet and then whatever else was disrupted.
So we're talking about the project itself, the contractor taking care of fixing the roads in the street that they had to do. We're talking about another portion of the road that still needed repair, that is going to always need repair until it's done.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Hold on, that don't make sense. So where they did the cut a certain part, and then, so from that part to the middle is where we're going, right?
Well, typically, yes, it would have been that, but they damaged beyond that, okay? So they damaged a little bit beyond their cut area, okay? Their utility cut area. And in some cases, probably what happened was to accommodate their trench box, which was utilized in the excavation for safety purposes and all, they used a bigger trench box that they anticipated to use. So they ended up, damaging or requiring more road width to accommodate that trench box. So everything that they disturbed, and we went out there, like I say, and took many measurements and came to a calculation of exact damaged area due to construction beyond what was in the project, what they were gonna be responsible for repairing, is being covered totally by the contractor. But beyond that, to get from that point to center line is what the city agreed to pay for, or were requesting for that money. And again, it's gonna add a lot more value to that street, and it's a good opportunity to at least get us a half road well improved.
Ms. Gilbert?
Yeah, if I might just add a little extra context to that, and Arnold is correct, but in addition, when the sewer line is designed and marked on a set of plans, it's estimated to be in a certain area, and when they actually start excavating, that's when they know exactly where they're working in, because there's an old sewer line, and the new sewer line have to go in adjacent to it, with enough spacing that there's not a challenge, and then where they ended up putting it, there ends up being a sliver of asphalt between the curb and the cut that maybe wasn't accounted for in the original calculation, because you think that if it's gonna be 4 feet wide and 100 feet long, that's the calculations, but that sliver, you don't wanna leave it there. So then there's a little bit of extra that's not caused by the contractor, it's just the best thing to do is to remove that as well. And so then that adds a little bit to the contract or to the amount. And then when the opportunity presents itself, instead of leaving a sliver by the curb, we want to remove it. When we just do a patch, we would rather do a lane. So that's where it evolved to this point, not with the contractor doing anything wrong. They are accountable for what they did, I hate using the word damage, what they did remove, they're responsible for that, and ideally being able to do the whole lane. It isn't, Mayor, like you said, you drive on it all the time. It is a deteriorated road even before they got there. When they started cutting it, the road was just crumbling. So we went back and did work with Arnold to make sure that we could maximize what's in the contract. The other thing about a contract is when the city signs a contract with a contractor, you're committing to them at least patching that amount or more if it's required. So we can't take that from the contractor. I've already worked with the procurement officer. For instance, we couldn't pull asphalt out of this because they bid on it. So at minimum, we're gonna have to patch it, and if we patch it, it's gonna have the same issue we had on Main Street. And we don't wanna do that. The utilities, project management, and streets want to fix it properly, which in this case would be the whole lane, but without funding, it's a half lane, and I think we could probably come back. I'll work with Arnold to see how quick we can come back and do the other side. But, that would be the ideal for the customer in this particular case.
Very well, what's the pleasure of the council? Mr. Montoya.
I go ahead and make a motion to approve for paving for northbound lane on Hot Springs from Bernalillo Street to Mora Street.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Montoya. I'll accept a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Casey? Yes. Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Arnold. Thank you, Maria. Now I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session. Is our attorney ready, Leo? Yes, sir. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we go into executive session pursuant to the New Mexico Open Meetings Act and NMSA 1978, Section 10-15-1, H8, for purpose acquisition of water rights, discussion of water lease agreement for the purchase of bulk water from Michael Quintana.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Second?
Second.
Second to enter executive session. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Romero? I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. We are now entering executive session. May I ask for the gallery to be emptied at this time?
Mayor, would you like to
Go ahead.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to go back into regular session.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we go back into regular session after coming out of executive session, where we met for the purpose of discussing purchase, acquisition of water rights, discussion of water lease agreement for the purchase of bulk water for Michael Quintana pursuant to New Mexico Open Meetings Act and MSA 1978, Section 10-15-1, H8. No action was taken.
Thank you. There's a motion to go back into regular session. I'll entertain a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey? Counselor Romero? Yes. I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.